Hey guys, Alex here, ajnashville.com, here with Mr. Greg Pease, co-host extraordinaire.
Absolutely. And we got a really good topic.
You cannot follow that intro with like, thanks for noticing me.
So today we're going to talk about expectations and accountability.
Right.
And we left off on our last podcast, and we spoke about. I'm not sure where I got this from. Wish I could credit the book or such, but expectations is a dirty word, or accountability is a dirty word without expectations. And so what that boils down to. So the analogy that I use is if you ask me to clean this room, and then you came back. Undisclosed, you say, hey, Greg, can you clean this room? Okay, yes. You leave for a period of time, and you come back, and you say, hey, you didn't wipe the walls down.
Right.
And I'm like, well, wipe the walls? You say clean the room. And you're like, well, yeah, that would be cleaning the
That
room.
includes wiping the
See,
walls.
now I feel like I feel maybe taken advantage. I didn't know how long you were going to be gone. I had no clue you want the walls wiped. That didn't even seem prudent to me.
Right.
But what happened is we were missing the expectation upon what you were going to hold me accountable to.
So would that be better suited, and you and I kind of talked about this in Texas, where there's a category, and in those categories there's subcategories. You know, in those subcategories, sometimes the action is the same. For example, one of the things you use is 24 hours under contract?
Yeah, first 24 hours.
First 24. It almost sounds like that scary TV show.
Yeah.
First 48.
First
but
48.
The first 24 hours, there's certain actions that have to take place. And if you don't set that expectation that XYZ has to happen in that 24 hours, an individual can come back and say, you didn't tell me you wanted this.
Absolutely.
And there is a very good possibility that you are the person to blame for it.
100%.
You know, so your analogy about wiping down the walls, like seriously, if I walk in and I'm like, hey, I need this done, I need it clean, and you pick up everything off the floor, you vacuum, you dust,
Clean
you
the
do
desk,
all that. Yeah.
tidy up the chairs.
Take the tires to wherever they got to go. If you did all that, but there was marks on the wall and I noticed them, I'm in the wrong for not saying, I need you to do this. In addition to that, I want you to wipe down the walls and clean the baseboards.
I agree. As the leader, it's on you to set those expectations. And here's what's more, a step further. When you properly set those expectations, you give me an opportunity to shine.
Right.
So if you said, hey, Greg, I want you to clean this room, and so make sure you wipe down the desk, tidy up the chairs, take the tires out, wipe down the walls, wipe down the baseboard, and I'll be back in 30 minutes.
Right.
Well, in 30 minutes, I can do all of that and maybe add some air freshener and maybe even wipe off the ceiling if I wanted to. Maybe not, but the point is you have now given me the opportunity to overachieve. So when you come back, I can stand high and be ready for that attaboy.
100%.
Everyone loves a good job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love a good job. Everyone loves hearing that they did a good job or an accolade. And by giving that clear line of expectation, we give the opportunity for
Right.
them to excel upon that, to get that attaboy.
Well, in fairness, you are everybody on this podcast, just so you're aware. But and also the tires, he's not kidding. There's literally 4 tires. We use those for sound compression.
Sound compression.
So no, I mean, in all seriousness, yeah,
The walls
I mean,
are pretty clean, though.
They are. They just got painted. They better be clean.
They better be right.
But yeah, setting that expectation, especially when you talk about people that are on your team, maybe people that's children. Children's a big one. Like, hey, I've
Huge.
never cleaned a room before. What do you want me to do? Well,
Absolutely.
please put all your toys in the toy box. You know, make your bed. These little things that you tell them, like as long as you give them a clear path, they're going to do them most of the time. If not, you'll replace them. Not the children, but the team member. You could.
Okay, who wants to trade one of these?
Exactly. I need to trade one out for one that listens.
Yeah.
But no, and if you're the other side of that, once again, you know, you can't expect someone to be a mind reader, you know, because your definition of clean this room is very different than my definition. There are some overlapping things that are similar. So, for example, I know if I'm going to clean the room, you have to do what? You have to vacuum the floor. Why? Because that's part of cleaning the room. I also know I have to do this. I have to dust. Why? Because you dust when you clean the room. But maybe you don't. You know, so laying out those guidelines, I think, is huge.
And a piece that I'll add into it, and again, I forget which book this one was, but people have to weigh in to buy in.
Right.
So afford people, whether it be, you know, spouse, kids, subordinates, team members, clients, whatever the case may be. We don't want people to. A lot of times we operate where we try to subject our idea upon others, and we want them to align with that. And if they don't align with that, we try harder.
Right.
People can buy into our idea if we allow them to just weigh in. So this can go two ways, and the first way would be if we said if you said, "Hey, Greg, can you wipe off this desk, tidy up the chairs, and wipe the walls for me, and have this place really clean by the time I get back?" Which absolutely, I can get it done for you. First of all, you've allowed me my first weigh in, but secondly, instead of saying that I'll be back in 30 minutes, then Greg, how long would you need to do that?
Yeah.
See, because now I'm really bought into this mission. At bare minimum, before you even left, I have mental energy determined, and I see myself cleaning this room to determine the amount of time.
Yeah. No, that's huge, because here's the thing. If that is so, if my thought process is, well, this will take 30 minutes, but yours is this will take an hour, and I'm the person setting the
time.
expectation, and you say, well, yeah, I can have it done. It'd probably take me about an hour. My next response would be, why is it going to take an hour? Well, dude, I'm only 5 foot tall. These ceilings
You
are
might
much,
not
much
even realize
higher.
that, yeah.
I've got to get the ladder. The ladder's in the basement. I got to bring it upstairs. I've got to move it, and you're like, oh, I'm 6.5 foot tall, and I didn't realize that, you couldn't reach the top. That's a good, valid point.
Well, another one, let's say you say, hey, can you do this, this, this? Yeah, all right, I'll be back in 30 minutes. Well, you told me that, and if you get back in 30 minutes and I'm not done,
Right.
in my mind, now if I'm goofing off, that's a whole other story, but we're not talking about the guy that's goofing off. If I tried and I wasn't able to fully execute in 30 minutes, I'm now accountable to your expectation, and I never had the opportunity to weigh in the beginning to say, hey, that's not realistic.
No, that's 100%. And here's the thing. So I want to go back to a previous podcast. I'm sitting here. I'm like, red flags, you know. And the red flag is this. So we've all done this before, and we tell someone, let's clean the room, for example. Let's say that we get in and you look at the carpet, and there's these nice little patterns, and you notice there's no patterns around the stuff that is movable. The plant that sits there, the sweatshirt that's there, it's vacuumed around, and then you say, golly, you say to yourself, you should have picked that up. You're so lazy. Why didn't you move that? And then the next week you come back and they vacuum all around everything. And then the sweatshirt's now moved to a different spot and he didn't vacuum underneath of it. And we say, oh, why didn't you do that? What turns out is a point of frustration. And it's you're yelling at me like, every time you come in here, you vacuum, you never move this. And it's like, you never told me to.
We never had the conversation.
I didn't realize you wanted me to pick stuff off the floor.
Right.
You told me to clean, and what I do is I vacuum first, and then I clean. And now you're like, oh.
Yeah,
who's to blame
having
now?
that conversation and allowing them to weigh in. It doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be a subordinate. It doesn't have to be a team member. It could be a client. It could be a spouse. It could be a child, your child, or a random one in the mall. But you're like, let's get this straight,
That
kid.
runs away from
Yeah,
you.
yeah. But allowing them, so having that conversation and allowing them to weigh in.
Yeah.
And so earlier I said there was two parts to that weigh-in piece. Imagine if, let's say you wanted to, let's go with your spouse. And so let's say, do we have to? No, but let's say you and your spouse are determining, you're gonna paint the living room gray. Grays are in right now. You're gonna paint it gray.
Yeah.
And so
50
if you
shades.
if you told your spouse that you were gonna paint it gray, you see they might say the reason is why it doesn't make sense to paint it gray.
Right.
And now we've created a situation where then you're trying to force it upon them. Like, I already know grays are in. So now I want to really force it upon. If you allow that person, you say, hey, I think we really should paint this gray. What do you think about that? Allow them to say their piece.
To interject, yeah.
Sometimes just being heard is enough. If it's a true objection, they're going to let you know.
Right.
But sometimes they may say, you know what, I really think it would be cool to paint it black. Okay, why do you think it would be cool to paint it black? Well, when I was a kid, my parents had a black room, and it was really fun to be in. Okay, do you think that's going to have the equal resale value when we sell the house in a year? Probably not. Okay, cool, let's go with gray.
Yeah. Exactly. Or it could be the opposite. Hey, you know what? I didn't even think about black. That's actually
Bingo,
good.
that's huge.
How about a charcoal? That's kind of a happy median.
That's
okay.
huge.
That's Shannon and I did that recently. We painted a wall in our house black. Mind you, I was always like, no, we're not doing that. We have to repaint it. And she's like, it's just paint. She's like, you can repaint it. That's why they call it paint. You just lay it over. But I'm like, we can't do this. And then she brings these different shades of black, into the house. And I'm like, okay, I actually kind of like that one. And this one's kind of cool. So we narrowed it down. We started with 20. We narrowed it down to 6. And actually, the color we went with wasn't even one that she chose or one that I necessarily chose as my first pick, but it was one of the 2 or 3 that she picked. You know, when I say she chose, I mean she chose as her first, like, this is the color. And actually the color she initially chose, we put on the wall, and it didn't look right when the blinds were open.
Yeah.
If we would have never soundboarded back and forth about that particular color,
You wouldn't have landed on this perfect
never,
one you have.
not a
Yeah.
chance.
It looks great, by the way. I seen a picture of it just
Thank
the other
you.
day.
Yeah, I took that picture myself.
Yeah, I took it
That's
myself.
all I did. Besides picking up the paint for the store, because
Here's
know
what
when,
I contributed.
when you paint an accent wall, like, you have to have a really steady hand.
Yeah.
And I just don't have that. You know, it would have been zigzags in the corner and everything. We would have put up the sound stuff just to make it look better. But I mean, that's a prime example. You know, we negotiated out to something that was, both of us were like, hey, yeah, we love it. This is awesome.
It's a really good point, and it kind of reminds me, going back to what we talked about today with the ladder. By allowing that person to weigh in, they may have a point, like we talked about getting to the ceiling, and I'm like, hey, I don't have a ladder. And you're like, oh, I didn't even realize it. Yeah, I got one right over here.
Yeah.
By allowing that, first and foremost, you may be able to easily, instead of fighting them, you may be able to easily get them on your page by allowing them to just voice their opinion. Or the other piece is, you might have been missing something that they see.
Yeah. And you're not putting them under the gun. So what you're not doing is, you're not saying, what do you mean an hour? No, I need this done in 30 minutes. Guess what's going to happen? If you tell someone that thinks it's going to take twice the amount of time, you're going to come back and there's going to be a lot of corners cut.
Yeah.
And they have to. Why do they have to? They have to live up to that expectation. Now, I'm not saying don't be, reasonable. Like, if somebody says, hey, this is going to take 4 hours, you know darn well it's only going to take 2. Adjust that expectation. Explain to them why this should only take 2. The fact is, as a leader, it is our responsibility to the people that follow us, that we lead, that we set the proper expectation, but we're never dug in to the point that there's no negotiation.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
You never know what a person's viewpoint may be. Everybody's got a different opinion, and guess what? Sometimes those opinions are better than ours.
Literally, yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine, like, the ladder situation where the guy's like, yeah, I could do that. I'm going to actually go downstairs. I'm going to get my ladder so I can reach all the way up to the ceiling, not just the wall in front of you. Because I know me, I'm like, why do we need to wash the whole wall? You only look at this area. Your hands only touch here. But this person's like, I'll get all the way to the ceiling, get all the cobwebs out too, so it's nice and clean there. And you're like, whoa, I didn't even think about that. That's brilliant.
Right.
Now, me, on the other hand, I get the cobwebs and everything. I'm pretty anal about my walls. But no, that's very, very important information, to communicate back to somebody. And like you said earlier in the podcast, you can't really hold someone accountable to an expectation they're unaware of.
And what if we said, so we do, a lot of military terminology, and I mean, we're fairly A-type personality. What if I worded it different and just said, make sure you tell people what you want?
Yeah.
Instead of saying that, hey, line out your whole set of expectations and make sure it's clear and make sure they weighed in and make sure this. That sounds like, oh my God, that's a lot. Like, that sounds like a work, but that's a lot.
Right.
Just tell people what you want.
Or
tell people what's going to make you happy. Afford them the opportunity to make you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they can respond with a term. I'm sure you know this, but there's an acronym. It's BOHICA. Bend over, here it comes again. So, and that's usually when you have that iron fist. Like, hey, this isn't changing. Like, prepare.
Right.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
It's gonna suck, but get it done.
That's bound to have. I mean, when people lead that way, it's bound to have a breaking point. No matter how long they get to hold it together, it's just inevitable to have a breaking point.
Yep, that's absolutely true. So, I think this has been a great podcast. Those of you that are listening, I've hoped you enjoyed it as well. Like we say every time, final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on what I said a minute ago. Make sure you are afford people the opportunity to make you happy. Don't fight people on the journey for them to make you happy. Most people would be happy to make you happy. Let them know what makes you tick, what you want out of the situation, and they'll probably do it, and they'll probably try to excel even a little bit further to really, really make you happy. Most people want to do that. When I work with people, I want to make them happy.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna coattail off that slightly. And that's just don't dig in. As a leader, allow your people that you're helping lead to express their concern of why maybe this can't be delivered. Hopefully they do it up front. But maybe when they get the task almost completed and you walk in and you say, why isn't this done? Take a second and listen to why before you just start laying into them and telling them why it should have been done. Because little do you know, maybe they knocked the paint over and they were supposed to paint the walls and they had to go up to the store and get new paint. Whatever the case may be, don't dig in. As a leader, we should take a moment to decide if whatever it is that we're hearing has any value or not. And if it doesn't, discipline as normal. If it does, maybe reconsider your
reconsider.
stance on it. So
It's huge.
thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to talking to you soon.